Biology, digital code, and political identity are now composed of the exact same sculptable material in the modern digital era. This material synthesis is the focal point of Naturoficial, Tecnologías Vivas, an exhibition at the Centro de Cultura Digital in Mexico City. The show surveys a decade of work by Jaime Lobato, an artist and researcher who actively dissolves the boundary separating organic life from artificial systems. Embedded within this collection is a 2015 project titled Intención Electoral. In the gallery space, it manifests as a series of 4 prints, each measuring 24 by 16.5 centimeters, pressed into archival cotton paper. To a casual observer, the chaotic scatter of pixels and fractured color bands register as standard glitch art. But understanding this work requires rejecting the assumption that it is a flat image. It operates as a deep, volumetric sculpture, physically carved out of the state's biometric architecture. Looking past the surface rendering of a digital photograph reveals its root architecture. Every pixel relies on a dense, underlying matrix of hexadecimal code to maintain its structure and visibility. Altering even a single block deep within this numerical grid triggers an immediate, cascading collapse on the surface layer. Standard image editing applies filters over the top. This technique bypasses the surface entirely to execute a structural intervention. Lobato treats the code as raw, physical space. He carves out existing digital matter and substitutes it with foreign datasets. By interacting with code as a volumetric space, the flat digital document degrades into a ruin. The base material Lobato subjects to this process is the digitized file of his own Credencial para Votar, his official Mexican voter ID. In Mexico, this document acts as the anchor of civic existence, regulating access to banks, hospitals, and legal identity far beyond the voting booth. Michel Foucault used the term biopolitics to describe how the modern state manages, categorizes, and monitors the biological life of its population. The ID card executes this control by reducing a human life into a standardized, machine-readable data point composed of a face, a signature, and a unique identifier. Lobato does not target an anonymous face. He targets his own registered civic profile. He weaponizes his own civic capital, offering up his personal digital body as the canvas for the intervention. Corrupting this specific document functions as a metaphorical act of civic suicide, a rejection of the state's biometric surveillance apparatus. The technique used to destroy the ID's legibility is known as data bending. As Rosa Menkman outlines in her Glitch Studies Manifesto, this is not a computer crash, but an intentional, methodological corruption of a file format's architecture. The artist forces a digital image open using software designed to process completely different types of data, such as a raw audio editor. The first sculptural step is subtraction. A precise block of data is located and carved out of the identity profile, leaving a digital void. The second step is addition. A dense, foreign block of data is forced into that empty spatial cavity. This brute force material substitution shatters the parameters that make the face recognizable to facial recognition software. Data bending exposes the digital citizen as a fragile architecture of bytes, vulnerable to being overwritten by heavier external data. The void in the ID's code is not occupied by random noise. It is occupied by a very specific dataset. The injected material consists of the official preliminary results from the 2012 Mexican presidential election. The 2012 election remains a deeply contested event, marked by systemic vote buying, coercion, and institutional fraud that triggered mass public protests. These paper ballots represent the act of casting a vote, but the tabulation of those votes is an invisible digital process, one highly susceptible to manipulation. Lev Manovich argues that the database is the dominant cultural structure of the modern era, having effectively replaced the individual narrative. Lobato takes the state's macro database and forces it directly into the microfile of his own identity. This injection acts as a material manifestation of corruption, where institutional data physically displaces the individual. Lobato frames this radical data injection process directly through the biological concept of the CRISPR-Cas9 genetic editing tool. In molecular biology, CRISPR functions as a pair of programmable scissors, allowing scientists to locate, cut, and replace sequences of genetic code in living organisms. Lobato maps this mechanism to his digital workflow. The 2012 electoral database functions as the Cas9 enzyme in the digital realm. The election data slices into the image architecture, executing a cut to rewrite Lobato's political DNA. The citizen is transformed into a political chimera, their structure mutated by the trauma of a fraudulent state apparatus. Consider how the state chose to present the 2012 election results to the public. Official platforms delivered the election results through perfectly clean, colorful infographics, projecting an image of mathematical clarity. This brings us to Johanna Drucker and her concept of graphasis. Drucker argues that institutional graphics are often designed to project a sense of absolute objectivity and democratic order. In the context of 2012, this clean data functioned as an ideological tool, masking the underlying chaos of the electoral process. The sanitized graphs issued by the state stand in direct opposition to the visual violence and unreadable static embedded in Intención electoral. Lobato defines his aesthetic output as an intentional anti-visualization. By refusing clarity and embracing pure noise, the artwork offers a more honest depiction of the 2012 election than a clean infographic. This act of digital violence ultimately returns to the physical realm, trapped as ink pressed into cotton paper. It reinforces the central premise of the Naturoficial exhibition, that digital code, human biology, and state politics are the exact same sculptable material.